Launcher go. TTC. TTC is go. LTS. Go. Mila. Mila go. STM. STM is go. Safety console. Safety is go. SPE. SPE is go. LRD. LRD is go. And CDR. CDR is go. Copy that. And launch director and TD launch team is ready to proceed.
I was sitting at an event in memory of the Challenger and the crew, and I was sitting next to Mrs. Nancy Reagan, who was the wife of the President, Ronald Reagan. And a missing man formation flew over, and it's representing those that died will go on to better places. Those that remain will continue the formation. And I said to Nancy, I know NASA will continue space missions. Who will continue our education mission? And she said, I guess we will, June. And that's where the idea came from. How could I bring the other families together to ask them, can we remember our loved ones by continuing their mission and make it an education mission?
Challenger, go with throttle up.
America's teachers are the preservers and protectors of our heritage. You save our past from being consumed by forgetfulness and our future from being engulfed in ignorance. Every new year for the school teachers like a new age of enlightenment in which young minds become awakened to the truths that we hold to be, quote unquote, self-evident.
I first heard about it from my students, to be honest. They thought I should go into space, and so one of them brought in an article that they had found in a paper about this program and said, you ought to look into this. So I, like 25,000 other teachers across America, wrote to NASA and asked for an application packet. I read in the description of the program that if you were selected, number one, go to space on the Challenger. And then number two, after that, you would have a year's leave of absence to travel the world and talk about your experience. That was very appealing to me. I'd been teaching for a number of years, over 15 years, and the thought of just having that opportunity to have a year off and to travel and to share my experience was really, really appealing to me.
I'm glad it's not me who will have to make the final selection of the first teacher astronaut, because each one of you is eminently qualified. For the lucky one who does go up in the shuttle, I have only one assignment. Take notes. There will be a quiz after you land.
A number of educators have come back and said that they were inspired to be a teacher. And it began with Krista McAuliffe.
I think that it's going to open up the idea that space is for everybody, and that's very important. I feel a great responsibility and excitement this year that I'm representing my profession. It's something that a lot of people don't have an opportunity to do, and I'm hoping that this is going to elevate the teaching profession in the eyes of the public and of those potential teachers out there. And one of the maybe secondary objectives of this is that students are going to be looking at me and perhaps thinking of going into teaching, and I'm hoping that more students will look at this as a wonderful profession and that they will choose to be teachers.
You know, we were told fairly early on in the process by NASA officials that the space shuttle program was still an experimental program. Those were important words for me to hear because they really were in contrast to what the public was beginning to think was, this is a routine thing. After the tragedy, the families of the lost astronauts came together and wanted to do something in memorial for their families. But prior to that, NASA had made the decision. All the semifinalists were named by NASA as space ambassadors. The idea being that hopefully we would carry on our work in the field of space education and continue to try to advance public understanding of space exploration and all of that happening, of course, in the aftermath of the loss of the Challenger.
In the early days, it was all about continuing the mission for Challenger. Well, nobody believed I could do it. They said, this has never been done. You're just a teacher, and I said, watch me. But what it would look like physically was my idea that I kept painting a picture, visual picture for people. One was an artist, and he sketched out what I was describing, which really helped, because when newscasters came up to ask me, what does this place look like? I could show them the picture that the artist sketched. So physically, it looked like what we hoped. Mission Control was like NASA's Mission Control. At first, I was doing all this on my own with the help of the families and anybody else we could beg to come help us. But eventually, we began hiring a staff to create the missions. So I told them what I thought a mission would be: to the moon, to Mars, to rendezvous with a comet. I mean, it was before major technology. At first, we had little cards with the mission statements on them for the students to follow those lessons. Once we had built the first center in Houston, Texas, President Bush said, come on, you've got to come up to Washington. We need more of these centers, not just the one. Eventually, technology grew with us, and we created all these grand things that you can find at the Challenger Center now. And right here in Dayton is a prime example of what can be done.
The thing that occurred to me as soon as I heard that the families were going to establish these Challenger Learning Centers, it just immediately was clear to me that Dayton, Ohio, birthplace of aviation, had to have a center. There was no doubt. And my first thought was that I would love to do something with the Dayton Public Schools. I was a naive beginner, I guess, in a way, kind of an enthusiastic person who didn't worry about protocol. I just contacted the superintendent of the Dayton Public Schools, Dr. Franklin Smith, and said, hey, I'm Jim, I'm at University of Dayton, I'm in the School of Education, I have an idea I'd like to run by you about science, math, education, and the Dayton Public Schools. And little did I know at the time, they were sitting on a pot of money that they could dedicate to this project. There had been a piece of Ohio legislation called Senate Bill 298, which the purpose of that legislation was to try to get more cooperation between large urban districts like Dayton and the surrounding county districts. And there was no really guidance in that legislation other than find a way to work together. Well, what the superintendents of those districts decided was to every year put $1 per student in a pot and invest it, looking for an opportunity at some point in time to do something collaboratively. And along I came. I met with them, pitched the idea, and they were enthusiastic. My idea met their preparation, and also found out that day that not only did they have the money, but that Dayton Public was willing to take a large space at Kaiser School, which was at that time was an environmental magnet school. And it turned out to be just a perfect environment for building the simulators. So at that point, we were really on a roll. There was a lot of shared enthusiasm. We had the resources, and thanks to Dayton Public, we were going to have the physical space to build the center. The division of Dayton Public Schools that was devoted to building maintenance and construction, those guys, they were pumped. And so whatever idea I had that I thought, what if we did this? They would go, yeah, sure, we can do that. And so there was just so much contagious enthusiasm, all of us looking forward to that day when this beautiful new facility was going to be built and where kids were going to come through that door. The community response was overwhelmingly positive. And I was so fortunate just to have the local news, the print and TV media, were all over this story.
Welcome back. Imagine as a student being able to command your very own space lab, study comets, or pilot a space shuttle. Well, it's a dream of many, and it's now a reality in Dayton.
Teachers from around the Miami Valley are preparing for the mission of a lifetime.
School districts are always trying to find new ways to encourage young students to become more involved in their studies. Well, that's the idea behind a new learning center that's being unveiled this morning at Kaiser Magnet School. Mari Williams is standing by live to tell us more. Mari.
Well, what you're looking at right here is mission control of the new Challenger Learning Center at Kaiser Magnet School in Dayton. Now, this is just one room of the Challenger Center. There's also a space station simulator where students can pretend they're working in outer space, and they'll conduct all sorts of experiments and launch probes. It's here where students from 8 school districts will be simulating missions. Say in the year 2061, they'll try to rendezvous with the Halley's Comet. Its director is Jim Rowley, and you may see him just in a second off to your left. Jim Rowley, as you might remember, was Ohio selectee to the Teacher in Space program. It's an exciting idea that the students will obviously enjoy very much, but much more importantly, the students will hopefully become very excited about such areas of learning, such as science, math, and technology. And we may see maybe some future astronauts come out of this program.
You know, I think from the very beginning, there was a sense from the teachers and the students who were coming to the Challenger Center that while the curriculum was about science, math, technology, and engineering, by the way, about STEM, and there was no talk about STEM, by the way, at this time. STEM was an acronym that wasn't in the educational world, right? But I think there was clearly an understanding and a sense from those who were participating that this was about more than science, math, technology, and engineering. That it was about learning how to work together as a team, learning how to persevere through failure, through mistakes, how to pick yourself up and move forward. And I think really at the very heart of the Challenging Learning Center, those values are really core to everything that we do. So that was a really gratifying experience for me to see that what was just an idea was not only becoming a reality, but was also generating a lot of local enthusiasm. I was very excited too, because we were the first Challenger Learning Center that was a partnership between public schools and a university.
The core mission of the center is to not only keep the mission and the memory of the crew alive, but also show our students where their future lies. When students come to the center, they take on the role of mission controllers and astronauts and engineers. So coming into a place you've never been, to take on that role and be told you have 2 hours to have a successful mission by working with your peers is such a rewarding experience. Currently, we serve 4 years old up to 15 years old. And the way that we tailor to all of those different grade levels is we really study what the students are supposed to be learning and doing in 3rd grade and in 4th grade and 5th grade. And then we build out our programs around that to meet the standards that teachers are looking for an educational experience. We are constantly going out into the community for different events. We'll partner with different schools to bring them in to not only fly our virtual missions, but go out and give their students hands-on experiences. It's a huge collaboration between the community and the surrounding tri-state area. We see kids from Kentucky come up. There's kids that come over from Indianapolis. They come for the Challenger Center experience because of the validity of that program. We'll have students come in who may be disruptive in class, and they'll get their job, and we'll take them into the simulator, and to just watch them come alive doing the non-traditional school work in the simulator setting. So these students are weighing things, they're reading gauges, they're working with robots to take measurements. And this might be things they're working on in their classroom, but when they get into the simulator, they really take on that role. And we've had teachers be like, you know, he doesn't do that for me, but he worked great here today. But like, that's the fun part too of a mission, is like, sometimes you get people together that have never worked together before, and like, you get them in there and you start rolling on a mission, and all of a sudden, like, you guys are best friends because you're all working to mission control, making sure this thing's a success. And the amount of like collaboration and teamwork and talking across jobs, it's things we do every day in our regular settings, but you're giving it to a 5th grader and showing them so early on that this is real life. Like, this is things that actually happen.
That's the great part about a simulation, is that it's taking you out of your everyday environment and putting you in the environment of flight. Kids need that. They need to, first of all, when they go into these simulators, assume a job that they didn't even know probably existed. And then to feel like elevated into that position and to really assume that role, have that responsibilities. For the short period of time they do it, it's still so significant, and they'll go back and they'll never forget it. And in the classroom, yeah, we may have some pretty awesome labs that we can teach, but when you go into a simulator and you assume a role, multiple roles in this case, then you are transformed, and I don't think you ever take that away. I love to see students throughout our country that are able to go through and not have to have something so much extra provided for them to be able to do it, that this is something that students of all backgrounds can participate in. We are providing a strong foundation of the STEM topics, but also additionally working with English language, right? Like, and speaking in front of each other. So we're also multilingual, so that our students that are multiple language learners can also participate. But the great thing is that we're not just STEM, right? We jump in and out of all sorts of topics and roles, and that is what we're strengthening in these students. So we're at the perfect age group. Elementary and middle school is a great place to be hitting, but we also go all the way from littles to high school students as well.
Every time I walk into a Challenger Learning Center, it's the same emotion that I first saw when I went in. But it's just exponential in how it keeps moving on and on and on with so much more reward. We've been rewarded with more than we could ever hope to accomplish, more than we could have ever accomplished. And one of the first questions a reporter asked me with building that first center is, how many people would you be hiring? And I said, well, I know the director works for a museum. They'll need a couple of flight directors to help them out. 2 or 3 overall. Well, now, with upwards of 1,000 employees, now I could answer, yes, we are creating jobs. What's so fascinating now is to meet people who are adults, who are grandparents, who flew a mission as a kid. And now their students, their children, have gone on a mission, and they have grandchildren growing up.
I think that Challenger's greatest contribution has been that it has always been authentic education, and that it started out of passion, out of the sadness, but also out of the joy of recognizing that 7 people were on a mission to accomplish something great. And those 7 people have multiplied into, at this point, 7 million, and it's going to be more in the future. And that authentic education is what really makes us great. And that means that, you know, we have physical centers, but we do have these satellite challenges, and we have camps, and we have ways of going out and coming back. And every decade, we have a new group of people contributing, and it's just going to keep growing that way. And so it hasn't stopped, and that's the beauty of having a dream.
As usual, it's a real pleasure to be at the Cape, to come down here and participate in something that the Cape does better than anybody in the world, and that's launching space vehicles.
One thing we do at the end of every mission is we talk about the crew. So they make their way into every mission. We tell the students, you know, you wouldn't be on a field trip today if this accident wouldn't have happened. But then we also touch on how it takes a mindset for something positive to come out of something so traumatic.
It was one of those events in my life that knocked me off of my personal center. It was a wake-up call. The success of the Challenging Learning Center was simply a reinforcement. It gave me so much confidence to trust my instincts, to trust my ideas about projects that I thought would be in the best interest of children. Dreams have a way of manifesting themselves. Ideas have a way of coming into this world if we're willing to act on them. And when I look at the Challenger Learning Center network around the world, I see proof positive of that idea.
Going into a Challenger Center open-minded to see what's possible. What are you going to be assigned? What is your role in the mission going to be? And then to contribute. I think that's one of the biggest things we need in society is people willing to say that I can assume a new role, I contribute, I matter. And no matter who it is, we know that great talent, inspiration, creativity, all of this exists within all of our population, not just one population. And so again, go into that center, go take on a new role that you've never done before, leave inspired, and remember, you did it there, you can do it into the future.
It's been 40 years since the loss of that marvelous crew of people. But it's been 38 years since we began to continue that mission with the children. And that's where we're going, into the future. I just hope that it continues. I hope there are people out there like there are now with a vision to continue, and no telling what it will become in the future. But I think there are good leaders at each of our learning centers, and they each want the best for their centers, for their schools, for their teachers, for the students. And they each carry their own goals and reach out with objectives to this is what we're going to accomplish this year, this time. And it belongs to the future. Challenger Center is about the future, and it belongs to the future. Thank you. Thank you all.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Roger, roll, Challenger. Good roll program confirmed. Challenger now heading downrange. Engines beginning throttling down now at 94%. Normal throttles for most of the plane, 104%.
I see this as an extraordinary opportunity and a wonderful year out of what I've normally been doing, but I think it's just going to enhance the teaching that I do, get the students more excited about their future, which is important. I do think that it's going to open up the idea that space is for everybody. And when you think of the future, there's going to be people flying in space, and it's going to be those kids that are in our classrooms. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thought.